Hello there. How's everybody doing? Everybody, as if somebody's watching this. Okay. Um, it is about 9:46 on the night of what night is this? Oh, yeah, it's the 10th, May 10th, 2019. Beautiful Central Florida. Yeah. I've been trying to figure out what I wanted to do this week, what I wanted to talk about. Um, and I've been tossing around ideas, and part of me was thinking, well, why don't I try writing something while I'm being recorded, and watching somebody write is like watching paint dry. It's not like other artists will do videos of them drawing or inking or coloring. That at least you could see it's something tangible. With writing, it's like line of text, line of text, line of text, line of text. It's really not. Doesn't really make for scintillating video watching. Not that what I do is very exciting to begin with. So I was thinking of maybe talking a bit about determination and sticking with projects even when they feel like they're not going anywhere. As some may know, I'm not exactly the fastest writer there is. Sometimes I make George R.R. Martin look like Louis L'Amour. For those who don't know, Louis L'Amour used to crank out a Western a month. One novel, complete, start to finish, in a month. Never read them, can't say anything about the quality of them, but one novel in a month. As opposed to George R.R. Martin, who is perhaps the slowest writer on the face of the planet. Of course, he is working on what looks like the very first word processing unit ever built. But that's neither here nor there. We all work in our own ways. So what I was thinking of talking about, like I said, was determination and sticking with projects. And what I want to use as an example is Brianna and the Three. Now, Brianna and the Three, I actually started writing back in, I don't remember the exact date. I know it was between 99 and 2001, because I started writing it when I was working for Lowe's, and that's when I was working for Lowe's. When I started writing it, I didn't really have any ideas about the character. All I knew that she was blonde. That's all I knew about her. Then along the way, created backstory for her, tying her in as a descendant of another character that I really, really should get back to, and giving her family history and all. The problem was, I wrote that first draft and put it down, typed it all up, got it saved on a disk, and forgot about it. Moved on to other projects. Never got around to editing it. Never did anything like that. So it kind of sat. And then one day I went back to it, and I read it, and it was terrible. Not from a plot point of view. I liked the plot, and I liked Brianna just about from the start, but just wasn't sitting well with me. So I figured, okay, let me try and get it to some kind of workable, acceptable, printable, because I was still at that time pursuing traditional publishing. And I, again, worked on it, put it down, worked on other things, came back, worked on it, put it down, moved on to other things. And it soon got to the point where it wasn't just extensive editing that it needed a complete start to finish rewrite. Excuse me. It needed a full beginning to end rewrite. And that is one of the things that kept it sitting there on my hard drive. It was originally supposed to be part of Campfire stories, but there was too much that had to be done with it. And I had I had enough stories to make it a sizable, a good size collection, so I went without it. And then I decided, okay, I'm going to start from the top. I'm going to rewrite this thing from the beginning to the end and go through my normal editing routine. Actually, it took more edits than usual. But by the time it was finished, and ready to be published in 2016, it was at a point where I could finally look at it and say, I like the story. The story is good. The story is great. I like the characters. I like the way it rolls along. I like the interactions between the various characters. So that is kind of points to my general feeling about stories, and my determination to finish them no matter what. Some of them take a while. Like I said, Brianna and the Three, I've been working on it since '99. The Fault Lies Not, I started working on that when I, quite honestly, was still living in New York. Let me put it this way. I moved to New Jersey in '93, and I moved down here to Florida in '97. And I was working on The Fault Lies Not before I moved to New Jersey. That's how long that was going before it was finally published. And sometimes that is required because though I don't like the term, I'm a pantser. Again, I don't like the term, but it comes from flying by the seat of your pants. It's writing by the seat of your pants. You're not making any plot outlines. You're basically just making it up as you go along. I have a vague idea generally of where the story is kind of sort of going, but I kind of sort of have to make up a lot of it. So, and I've heard various pieces of advice about that. If it doesn't feel like it's working, just abandon it, file it away, and move on to something else. While I do agree with the moving on to something else, don't forget about it, because it's just quite possible that maybe at that moment you don't know how to continue that story, but sometime down the road you might. So I always keep my notebooks out where I can see them. This way I'm constantly reminded. Behind me at my comfy normal writing chair, I have right over here, I have the notebooks for My Soul to Keep and The Fast Fading Light. Next to them I have a story that I had just made the first steps into, and which is titled, what is it titled? It was originally titled Duality, but I changed the title. In Essence of Dichotomy, excuse me. I haven't looked at that one in a while, so the title slipped me for a moment. Plus my vampire novel is over there. My vampire novel, which I've been working on for now going on 10 years. So those are right there. And in front of the chair on the ottoman, I have a couple of other notebooks, including the one that I'm working on right here, which when it started was called Half a Life and then became Mated Souls and now is currently titled To See Beyond the Veil, but that's probably going to be changing because I don't like it. But and the thing is, this also goes back to not um, paying too much attention to what other people tell you. Advice is good to a degree, but when it gets right down to it, you have to do what's best for you. And for me, I work on multiple projects at the same time. So if I get stuck on one, I move on to another. At the moment, I'm a little stuck on my Soul to Keep and the Fast Fading Light. So I figured let me work on this. There's about a dozen or so pages that I have to they had already written up. So I'm going to go through those again, polish them up a bit. Excuse me. And in the meantime, in the back of my head, I'm still thinking about what happens next in the Fast Fading Light, and my Soul to Keep. My Soul to Keep first, because that's the one that's closest to being finished. That's about 2/3 to 3/4 of the way done, and it'll be finished and go through the regular writing process, the editing process. But there are authors out there, and I'm not going to discount the advice, completely discount the advice of a published author, especially somebody who's had a modicum of success. But there comes a point where you have to realize that what they're saying works for them. It may not work for you. So you have to find your own way. Work at a pace that works best for you. I mean, I have literally had days where, okay, before I go there, let me tell you my usual habit. I get off work at 6:30. I come home. If I come straight home, I get here by about a quarter after 7, 20 after 7, depending on traffic. And then I make dinner and eat. So 8 o'clock, let's say I'm finished with that. Then I have websites that I go to, things that I check. I spend a lot of time. I spend a fair amount of time on DeviantArt and Comic Arts Fans because I have no artistic ability, but I do appreciate a nice piece of work, a nice piece of artwork, I should say. And it also inspires me. It also inspires me to a degree. And browse through Facebook real quick, and then by 10 o'clock, I want to be away from the desk and on my chair over there, actually sitting down to write. And then I try and write for 2 hours, and then about midnight, go to bed, probably read a little bit, and then finally lights out. Well, I can't really say lights out because I have a Kindle and I'm reading in the dark anyway. And that's my evening routine. And there have been days when I will be sitting over there for 2 hours, and all I will get is maybe a sentence. But you know what? That was one more sentence than I had yesterday. It was one more step forward. You'll hear people say, well, you write 5,000 words a day. Within a month, you've got a novel. It's like, yeah, and I don't have time to write 5,000 words a day. Because even on my days off, like I'm off, I work Monday through Friday. I'm generally off weekends unless I'm going in on Saturdays for overtime or to make up time. I have other things I have to do. I live alone, just me and the cat, and the cat doesn't want to cook or do laundry. So I got to do laundry. Worse yet, she doesn't even clean her own litter box. So, that falls to me too. And it's easy to say, well, you should do this, you should do that. Yeah, I would love to do that if there were 3 more of me. I would like to say, okay, number one, you go and you do the cooking. Number 2, you take care of the laundry. 3, you do the litter box and general cleaning. I'm going to sit over here and write. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. It's the same thing. Like when people talk about editors and professional editors and professional covers, it's like, yeah, I'd love to use a professional editor and a professional cover artist. Unfortunately, I also have bills to pay. And unfortunately, I don't have the highest paying job, despite the fact that I'm looking for one. Sorry. Didn't mean to get a little loud there. It just annoys me to no end. Because, again, there are people out there who are very successful at what they do. Great. I'm glad what you do works for you. I'm doing what works for me. Does it mean that I don't have as much, I don't produce as much as others? Yeah. Am I okay with that? Sure. J.D. Salinger wrote what? 1 book? 2, possibly? I'm not even sure about that. You know, I you do what you do. You do what you can. You do what you have to do. You have to find what works best for you. And if that means 1 sentence a day, write 1 sentence a day. You know what you do? Write 1 sentence today, shoot for 2 tomorrow. And that's why I try and spend as much time as I can on the weekends, writing, spending as much time writing as I possibly can, because I'll actually get more done than, because in between, it'd be easy to say, okay, at 9 in the morning, I'm going to go do laundry. And then while the laundry's in there, I'll, do whatever little web surfing that I want to do. And then 12 o'clock is lunch. After lunch, I'll clean up, and then from, say, 2 to 5, I'll just focus on writing, and then at 5 o'clock I'll have dinner, and then say from 6 o'clock on, I'll try and concentrate some more on writing. And then that's the best that I can do, because it's also quite possible that I can come home from work. There are days when I come home from work and I don't even have the ambition to make dinner. I'll be sitting there and it's like, do I really have to eat tonight? It's like, yeah, you kind of have to. You're trying to lose weight, and you really fasting is not good. And what you find is, or at least I find, that there's a little voice in the back of me saying, you're not going to be able to write anything if you don't take care of yourself. You're not going to help anything. You're not going to produce anything better. You're not going to, only thing you're going to do is delay finishing the first draft. And, because you're going to get to that point where you're just going to sit there and you're just going to say, fuck it all. So I've learned to forgive myself for when I write poorly. I've learned to forgive myself for when I don't write. I've learned to forgive myself for a lot of things. And I don't want this to turn into a confessional. There's probably going to be a video about that, but I have a whole buttload of issues that I might end up talking about one day. And my battery is down to 15%. Hang on, what? I can't. Okay. Yeah, this is what you basically just have to do, is find the way that works for you. For me, it's whatever I write, whatever production I have that night, whether it's a word, a sentence, a paragraph, 5 paragraphs, a page, 10 pages. It's progress. It's moving forward. And the one thing to remember is that there are always going to be people who tell you it's not good enough. There are always going to be people who say, what, you only wrote 5,000 words yesterday? I wrote 10,000 words in an hour. Well, goody for you. Goody for you, Snowflake. You also don't work a full-time job. You also have a wife and or husband who can help you with the chores around the house while you sit in your office and write. I don't. And I do what I can. And I'm sorry if it's not good enough. But you know what? This is not a competition. This is not a competition. I will never tell another writer that what they're doing is wrong. I may not agree with it, but I will always say, whatever works for you. So, we each have to find our way. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. That's the thing about these. Since I don't script them, it's strictly off the top of my head. So it's, and sometimes my head is like going in 20 directions at once. So I really have to do something like my glasses are all reflecty. So yeah, I'm gonna cut this down. I'm gonna cut this a little bit short this week. Other videos have been running about 25, 26 minutes. This one's going about 20, coming up on 22 minutes. So I guess we're just going to cut it short here. Yeah, I know I said I was going to talk about determination, but I think kind of I did. So remember, thank you. Hit the if you're watching this and actually like what you see, hit the subscribe button down below. Ring the bell. I try and do so far I've been able to do a video every week, usually on Friday. Once or twice I've had to do them on Saturdays, just because of work-related stress. All the books are available online in print and print on demand through Amazon, and ebooks through Smashwords, Amazon, Lulu, iTunes, you name it, it's probably there. Smashwords has an extensive distribution network. And if you do buy one of the books, please, please, please put up a review. Every little bit helps. I don't care if it's good, bad, or indifferent. Just put your review up there. And always remember, we are each of us the heroes of our own stories and the villain of someone else's. See you next week. Or sooner. You never can tell.